Good morning and welcome to Peace Out, where we are all learning together to peace out. That's what we talk about every single day, right? But I do a lot of other things other than this, by the way. I've got an author page and got TikTok, which I do all kinds of stuff over on TikTok. And so I'm pulling some things together, and just you're gonna have to stay tuned because I think I'm gonna start a podcast. I've got a newsletter. All these things are going on, you guys. You guys got to keep up. If y'all don't know about all those things, send me a message or I'll find out about them, right? Because I'm doing lots of different things, publishing in Pakistan, and I do the caregivers blog. A lot of things going on here at what I will call Dust Fire Ministries, and I think I'm going to add an international on it, right? Anyway, so this morning we're talking about peacing out because we talk about peace out every single morning because it's something we really need to learn how to do, right? And we have to. The thing is there's not a button to push, and it's not just automatic. We can't put that on autopilot and just our hearts go, oh, this is wonderful, this is horrible, and it's peaceful too, right? It doesn't just go automatically to that. It's a work. It's something it's a work in progress. We're a work in progress, and we have to just continue to work at that, right? Sometimes it's hard because sometimes you don't want just an immediate peace. You want to have to work through something, but we can always work through that with peace, no matter what we're working through, right? And so that's the coolest thing about God is He doesn't disqualify us. He doesn't say, well, when you get it together, come back. I'll help you when you can talk normally. When you stop crying, suck it up, buttercup. No, He just walks with us. He thinks we're cool. He can't get over it. He thinks we're cool, and He walks with us through time, and He wants to help us process those things that we have to go through. But in the middle of the storm, in the middle of the trial, in the middle of stuff going on, and we all have stuff going on, God can still give us His peace. But the thing is, we have to let it rain. Now, I found an Old Testament scripture about it today. Right? I read some in Ezekiel, not very long, because I went, what? Right? I was reading some in Ezekiel, and there's some really cool points to pull out of there. There's this real powerful too. And then I guess I ran a reference to a scripture in Ezekiel, and I found myself in Micah. Or in Hosea, excuse me. Well, I did read some of Micah too. I really like Micah, the minor, smaller prophets, no less powerful than the major prophets, right? But the Old Testament has some good points for us. As a matter of fact, Paul said the Old Testament, the Old Law, is always aiming at Christ. The target was Christ. And we're going to talk a little bit about a target today because the scripture I found talks about a target. It actually talks about an arrow. Let me read the scripture real quick, and then we'll dive in a little bit. It's actually in Micah 7. Let me see if I can find this little number here. 16, right? And he says this. He says, they look everywhere except to heaven, to the Most High. Or they look everywhere except to God for help, for peace, for prosperity, for salvation, for redemption, for righteousness, for whatever, right? They look everywhere but to God. They are like a crooked bow that always misses the target. Now, if you think about that, a crooked bow, now I haven't shot a bow very many times in my life, but I have shot a bow a few times. And my grandchildren have done a lot of archery, and I've watched them. And if the bow is crooked, it doesn't matter where you set the target. It's going to miss. You can't adjust it, right? You can't over-adjust for it. If it's crooked, it's going to send the arrow in a crooked or a skewed path, right? So the bow is if you're looking for something, if you're looking for peace somewhere other than God, you're never going to get the target because you're not going to find it. Now, if you go read this verse in Hosea 7, you're going to find a whole bunch of stuff. He's talking about God's people who have walked away from God, who didn't trust God. See, it's always a choice. We can trust God or not. We're just never going to find that peace if we're looking for it somewhere other than Him. We'll always miss that target, right? And so in the Old Testament, the target was Christ. The whole Old Testament was to bring us to Christ. The target of the Torah, this is in the complete Jewish Bible, says the target of the Torah, which is the Old Law, was Christ. The whole Old Testament is pointing us to Christ. Now we're on this side. But our target is still to be found hidden in Him. Our target is still to accept the salvation that He gave. Our target is still to understand the righteousness that we have in Him. Our target is still to trust Him for peace, for life itself, right? He's given us everything we need for life and godliness, right? We use that scripture a lot. And so our whole target is to find Him and to find His peace and to seek Him. And if we aren't looking for peace anywhere else, we're just flat not going to hit that target. If we're looking for peace in finances, boy, I'd be messed up. If we're looking for peace in our finances and financial security, that's not a bad thing. It's just not going to give us true peace, right? If we can look for peace in relationships, in a marriage. Now, we want a peaceful marriage if you're married, right? You want a peaceful marriage, and you should have a peaceful marriage, and you have the right to enjoy a peaceful marriage, but you're not going to find true soul peace in that marriage alone, because we got to find that peace in God. Now, here's the flip side of that. When we find that peace in God that we want, everything else will be peaceful too, right? Then we'll have that security in our finances. We're going to trust Him for wisdom. We're going to trust to follow Him. We're going to know that when things fall apart and when checks don't come in, that we can still trust God, and therefore we'll still have peace even without financial security. Now, we want financial security, don't get me wrong, right? And we want good, solid relationships with healthy relationships, right? But when we have our peace in God, when the things don't turn out like we want, or we thought they were going to, or they fall apart, a relationship falls apart, or our bank account is overdrawn, we can still have peace in God, because that peace isn't in the relationship. Our peace is in God. So we want to always look for Him for that peace, or we will always fall short or miss the target like a crooked bow. Crooked bow is going to always shoot a target in the wrong spot. If we're looking for peace anywhere else, we're not going to have the peace that God provides. And when that, whatever that thing is that we're counting on for peace and security, whenever it falls apart, and trust me, it will, then we're not going to have the peace and security. But if we put our peace in God, nothing else will matter. It won't matter what happens in our day, what happens in our week, what happens in this crazy, crazy world. We can still have that peace with God and peace in God, no matter what. So are you shooting a crooked bow today? If so, put it down. Put it down and just go back to God and just go back to Him. Go back to His Word and go, okay, I'm going to trust this. That's what Hosea was talking to the people. He's like, come back. And remember in Hosea 6, he says, come and let us return to the Lord. It says, I want you to know God. That's the most important. More than burnt offerings. They were trying to offer burnt offerings without bringing their heart to God. Missing the target. It's a crooked bow. Shooting a crooked arrow. You never know where it's going to go. Hey, that made it rhyme. I wonder if I could write a poem. Anyway, so the whole point is to know God. That's where we're going to find that peace. That's where we're going to find that security. That's where we're going to find everything we need for life and godliness. And then the other things will pan out. But even if they don't, this world, this emotional state, our mindset, our heart doesn't fall apart with it, because we're hidden in Him, because we're only looking to Him for peace, for salvation, for righteousness, for fill in the blank of whatever you need today. God's got it. He's a whole package deal, and we'll never miss the mark as long as we're always aiming at Him, or for Him. Don't aim at, for aiming for God and the things of God, right? That's why we can peace out. He's got the peace we need. We're not going to find it anywhere else. So keep seeking Him, and you will find His peace. Then we can peace out. Have a great day, you guys. I'll see you again tomorrow.